Welcome to coding module. Today, we will create the basic productivity tool application using Excel VBA. So before we start coding, let me show you first how this tool will work. So first, upon opening the tool and after clicking enable content, it will ask for your username or name and department details. So enter those details. Let's say Chando, and I'll select some department here. So if you click start, um, you can now start using the productivity tool, but if you click cancel, it will close the file. So let's click start. And here we have two worksheets, one for prod tool, which contains the running timer, the ID, the task of your current productivity log. We also have a button for logging new items and a stop button to stop the productivity tool timer. So clicking the Log New Item button will open the Productivity Tool user form. Here in the user form are the user details where the user can log new item by inputting the ID number and selecting the task. It also shows the current log item details and a table containing all the user logs. So now let's try to add a new item. Let's say, for example, ABC123, and the task is fixing issue. If you click start, the user form will vanish and the timer will start for the current lag item, which is this item. If I want to lag a new item or task, I need to click the lag new item button again and add a new item. So let's say second, I'm just providing a random value there. So I'll choose a different task, for example, development. If I click the start button again, it will automatically put an end time to my previous log item and start a new timer. So let me hit that again. So this was changed, the timer restart, and if we check the log item table, we have here two items. The previous one has now a runtime of 0.63 minutes, and the second one is still open. So if I try to add a new one and select a different task, and if I click start, that will add another item and close the previous item. So the second item, it only took zero point 0.4 minutes. And if you click stop, it will put an end time to the last item that I lagged. So like this. And then the prod lag worksheet, it contains the lag items. So it is also the source of our user form list box in here. So now that you see how this tool will work, we can now start coding. All right, so let's start by opening a new Excel file and save it as a macro-enabled workbook. So I will name this VBA productivity tool, and make sure to change the extension to XLSM or Excel macro enabled, and then hit save. So here, let's create the two worksheets first. So the first one, let's name this one prod tool, and then the second one, let's give it a name prod lag. All right, so let's work on the prod lag worksheet first. So here, let me just assume my cells, and let's add the column header. So let's start with the name, department, the ID, task, start time, end time, and a run time in minutes. So let me just adjust the length of these columns. All right, then let's add some background to our header. I will also center that. And I think that should be fine. And then after that, let's go to the first worksheet, the prod tool. So here we need to create a reference for our timer as well as the user details. So maybe we can start at this column. So I'll create a let me just zoom out this as well. So here I will put my timer setting. So for the timer setting, we have action, start time, the current time, and the timer. So let me also add a header in there. And then another reference for the user details. So I will also merge this cell and put here the user details and just do the same design. So for the user detail, we just need a field for the name and the department. All right, so it's a good practice as well to name this cell for this reference. So for the action, I need to show my formula bar. I will name this cell C action for cell action. Then for the start time, it's C start time because it's easy to reference a cell using a name instead of the range name. So here is the C current time, and this one is C timer. And then for this one is C name, and last one is C department. All right, I think that should be good. Now let's also add the reference for our ID and task field as well as the timer. So we will put that in here. Oh, this one should be for the ID and the current task of the user productivity item. Then I will merge it here. Where's the merge? As well as here. All right, and then let's also give this cell a name. So this one I will put CID, and this will be CTask. Later we will be using that cell name to reference these fields, and then I'll just add some border as well as here and center those label. Now let's also add a cell for our timer. So I think this should be enough. And then the value should be equals to the value of the timer. So let me add a border first. I will just say it should be equals to the timer value. All right. So for example, if this is like that, then that should be the same. Why it's not the same? Let's make sure that the format of this is the hour, minute, and seconds. So right click and format cells and select time and select this format. Similar here. So let's do the same formatting. Select time and select this format. Hit OK. Now we need to center that and uh, give it a bigger font size. Oh, I think that's the largest size. Alright, now we can add a button here for logging new item and the stop button. I will be using shape. It's better to use shape for your macro instead of the ActiveX. So I'll create here the add log new item. Let's use that design. I'm not good at design, so you can customize your tool on your prepared design, but maybe this is the simple version, simplest version. So now let's add the button for the stop, and of course let's give it a different color. All right, now we have the button and the reference. The next step is to create the main user form that will ask for the name and department. So So let's go to our VBA editor. You can show it using Alt F11 from your keyboard, or if you have the developer tab available, just click the Visual Basic. So now let's add the user form for our uh, or the main form asking for user and department. So first I will name this user form FRM main, and of course change the caption to, let's say, user details because it's asking for the user details. And then I'll just give it a simple back color, this one. Now let's add label for the name and department. So here in the caption, I'll say enter your name, then change the font style and size to bold and 11. Then let's also change the font color to white so user can see it. All right, so now let's also create the second label for the department. Select because we will be using a combo box in here, so it should be select. Oops. Oh, why I can't resize it. All right, so let's move it a bit. Okay, now let's add a text box for the username. Let's give it a name. So txt name, and then a combo box for the department. I think let's give it a space in between. We will name this combo box CBO department. All right, and then we also need a button for the start and cancel. So this one, name it CMD start, and of course change the caption to start. And then let's also give it a back color. I will just use this color, and maybe we should also change the font to bold and 11. All right, then I'll just copy that and then create my cancel button. So I will name this CMD cancel. Of course, the color should be different, and I think we should give it a white core color. And of course, the caption should be cancel. All right, now we have a user form for or a main form. So now let's add a code to give option to our department combo box. So you can right click and view code in here. And then I will create a separate sub for department. Or maybe we can just put that on the initialize event of the user form. So let me remove this one because we don't need that. Now let's say with CBO department, let's add some item in here. I don't know any department that you can think of. IT, logistics, finance, HR, or operations. So those are all our items. So now if I test this user form, I have now items in here. Okay, I think we should also change the font size to match the label. So let's use 11 as well. Same with the name field. Let's change the font size to 11. And the style of the combo box, it's a good practice to use uh, the drop down list style so that you are not able to write different department in there. So let's test this. Then, right, I think it looks good. So now we don't have a code yet for this too. So let's add the code for the start. For the start, what it will do is just copy the details entered to these fields. So the name and the department should go there. So if I click start, first we need to validate if user provide a value for the name and select a department. So if txt name that value is not equals to null and the cbo department that value is not equals to null, then that's the time that we will save the details. Next, so we need to access the worksheet so we can put the details in here. So what I usually do is I create a module for for my for my VBA tool. Let me name this mod prod tool. I'm using option explicit. So if you're not familiar yet what the option explicit is, so it's a good practice to use this. It's like you cannot use a variable without first declaring it. So that's the good thing of using option explicit. So let me first declare a two object for my two worksheet. So the first one is my tool sh. It's a worksheet. Public tool sh. Sorry, it should be public. Then the next one is public log sh. So those two object will be my reference for these two worksheet here. And then I will create a subroutine initialize sheet. So I will put, then we'll just say here that set tool sh is equals to this workbook that sheets prod tool, and then the other one is this workbook that sheets prod log. All right. So now let's go back to our main. And here on the initialize part, let's call the init sh to initialize our variables. And then here I will, so if I want to put a value here, I just need to call the worksheet name for this prod tool worksheet. So let me go back in here and just say tool sh that range cname. I name that cell cname. Let me just verify. So if I look for cname, you see that it's referring to this cell. And then the other one is C department. So for this one. And then so the value should be equals to txt name dot value. And then the C department that value should be equals to selected department dot value. Else we can give the user a message box, select, enter your name and select department. It's BB in exclamation uh, pending details. So now if we test this and we click start, it will say we need to select details. If we try it. Okay. So let's save this Jando, and if I click start, you see that the details is populated on our user details reference. And after we click start, this form should also vanish. We can do that by using the unload me code. So let's try that again. New name. start. All right, so it vanished. Did I change the style of this combo box? Yeah. All right, so now if we hit cancel, so we will just close the workbook. So we'll say this workbook that close, and it has a parameter save changes, which requires a Boolean value. So let's say false. We don't want to save any changes after we click cancel. And this main form should pop up after we open the workbook or the tool, the productivity tool file. So to do that, we need to call this user form from the this workbook event. So go to this workbook, open that, and here look for the workbook object, and the event we need is the open. So here we can say call the main user form. So frm, no, frm main dot show. All right, so that if we open it, that will happen. So just a test. All right, so now that we have the main user form, let's now create another user form for the productivity tool where we can add new productivity items. So let's insert a new user form. Let's name this frm prod tool, and for the caption, I will just use, oh, why it's not, okay, productivity tool. All right, so let's expand the size, and then I will put a background as well here, same background color. And then let's add the label for the name and department. So this should be the name. Let's change the font style to bold and 11, or maybe a bigger one, 14, no, 12 maybe. And then the for color, I will use the same color on my sample. So that's our one label. And then we also need another label for the department. We don't need to assign an ID or a name property to labels because we will not access them. Alright, so now let's add another label for the name and the department selected by the user. I'll just copy that, place that in here. Oops. And then here we need to provide a unique name. So this one will be LVL name because later we will change the caption property of that control. And let's name so it will not be confusing. And then let's change the for color as well to white. And let's add another label in here for the department. So I will just use that. And then I will put a divider here using a command button. Can find a better divider that I can use. And then let's add another label for the uh, the ID or ticket. Then I'll say here enter order ID or ticket or anything, maybe title. And let's add another label for the task. So we want user to select a task. All right. Maybe we can align this to right. This one too. And we need a text box and another combo box for these two fields. So let's start with the text box for the, oops, we need a space later for the start button. So this should be txt id. And then I will change the font size as well to 12 to match the label. And then we need a, where's the combo box? This one, the combo box for the task. Mhm. Then I will name this combo box CBO task. And of course, we need to have a button to log that item. So I will call this CMD start. And of course, change the caption to start. Let's give it a bigger font. All right, now let's add another divider. I will just copy this here. And then we also want another label here for the current item logged by the user. So maybe I should copy both of this. This one should be the current task. So we'll name this LBL task. And let's copy that again. Next one is for the start time. And we need to label this LBL for label start time. Then let's add a default caption to this. All right, and last control is our list box that will contain all the items logged by the user. So I will name it LST items, and then uh, we can now or maybe we can do that later, but here we need to assign column for this list box. So we need 5 columns, and then we will also use the column header. So we need to set that to true. And for the column width, maybe we can just use 100 point for all the columns. All right, so that's all that we need for the productivity tool user form. And before we proceed on adding the code for this user form, let's work first on our timer. So how can we make this time moving? So for that, let's code that to our module. Where's the module? So go back here to the module and we will create a subroutine for starting the timer. Mhm. And here we will also initialize the worksheet first. So let's call that. And then we need to set this. So every time we click start on the productivity tool user form, this value should be equals to running because the timer is running. So let's go back here, and then the worksheet is the tool sh that range c action. I named that cell c action. That value is equals to running, and then maybe I can minimize this so I don't need to alt tab. All right, so here we also need to set the start time value. So we'll do tool sh that range c start time. that value is equals to now. So based on your system time. And then next to that is, yeah, later we'll add the following, but we need to make this timer moving first. So let's create a go to here, and let's say if tool sh that range c action that value is equals to running. So as long as the value of this field is running, this timer should keep on incrementing. So we'll say tool sh that range c current time that value is equals to now. Because later, what will happen for us to get the timer, we need to subtract the start time from the current time. So the formula is this. All right. So I hope you copied the same formula. So let's go back to our VBA. So that's the purpose of this loop. But in order to make this timer moving, we need to use the VBA that do events. So using do events, it will allow us to do different action in our workbook while the timer is keep on ticking. So if we don't use do events, it's hard to make this timer uh, running. Alright, so as long as this label is running, this part of this code will continuously work. So maybe we can try this so I can show you. So if I click start, so you see that our timer is now working. So that is how we will set the timer. All right. So now I will stop this. Next, we need to add a subroutine that will stop our timer. So let's create a stop timer subroutine. Let me hide my immediate window. So if we click stop timer, what will happen is, let's also initialize our worksheet, and then we want to change this value to start so that uh, this loop will stop on looping if we change the value here. So let's say tool sh that range c action is start. Later I will explain why I put start instead of stop. And then we also need to clear the value of these two to reset our timer. So we'll say tool sh that range. I'll just add some space to my module. That range c start time that value is equals to null. Same with the c current time that value is equals to null. And yep, I guess that's all that we need. So let's try to stop the timer. You see that the clock reset. Now let's start it again. And then if I go here and click, oh, I cannot click run here. All right, so later I will assign this macro. So let me stop that for now. So next step, since we have now the timer working, we can now go back to our fraud tool user form, and I'll maximize that again. So we can start with referencing the value of our username and the department. So we will add the code in the initialize event of the user form. So right click on your user form and click view code, and then put your cursor on the user form subroutine and look for the initialize event. And then here first we need to initialize our worksheet. You know, the big help of doing this is you don't need to declare your worksheet again and again. You just need to call this subroutine to do that. So that would be helpful, especially if you have multiple worksheets. So just call that and your declaration is fine. So here in our initialize code, we need to add in an options to our task list. So I will create a different subroutine for the task list. And then maybe we can say fixing issue, creating ticket, call, break, email, development. It's a combination of tasks for all the department. So you can use your own task if you want. Troubleshooting. I think that's enough for my task list. So what I'm going to do is just call that task list subroutine here in my initialized event of user form. So add task list. And then as I mentioned, we need to reference the value for the name and department. So LVL name that value is equals to tool sh that range the C name that value you still remember, and then the LVL. Here's my LVL department. Okay, did not name this one. Let's go back to the code. LVL department that it should not be that value, it should be that caption. So make sure that is that caption because it's a label, not a text box. This should be C department at value. I'll add some comment here. And after that, we need to set the value of our list box as well. And as I mentioned during the demo, the source should be the prod log worksheet. So to do that, we will be using the row source property of our list box control. So let's go back here. And what we want to show in our list box is just the ID up to the runtime because we already have the name and department available on the username. So we'll just use this column for our source. So that is column C to G. So set the list box row source LST item. I named that LST item that row source. And then define here the name of the worksheet and then exclamation point and the range. So let's start with C2 to G to whatever the last available row is. So instead of putting here 2 or a static number, we will get the last available row. To do that, we need to use the worksheet object for the prod log tab. So that is log sh that range that end Excel app that row. So what this code does is it check what is the last row in this worksheet with or in column A with with value. So if we have 12 value here, or if the last item in this worksheet is in row number 12, then the row source for our list box will be this range. Oh, let me go back in here. And we'll add the other code later. So what else we can start in here? I think we can work on the start button now. So we need to validate first if the user provided a value or not. So let's say if txt id that value is not equals to null, and the cbo task that value is not equals to null, then we will log the item. So for the start code, because if user provide an ID and select a task, we need to start the timer and as well populate the fraud log worksheet. So instead of doing the code in the same block, I will just create a new subroutine for my start. So first, I need to know the next available row in my worksheet. I think it's better if we create a public variable for the next row, and I will do that. So I'll create the public next row variable in my fraud tool module. Can just use integer. Maybe we can also declare a variable for the last row. And now let me go back to the fraud tool user form. And for the start, let's get the next available row first, so that the VBA will know where it will paste the item. So the next row should be equals to the log sh. I am referencing column A to get the last row with value. Should be Excel app, that row. So if I execute this code, it will only get the last row with value. For me to get the next available row, I need to add 1. And then so with log sh and with, we need to populate this data here up to start time, because at the initial log of the item there is no end time and run time yet. So we will populate these cells after the user clicks start. So for the first cell, the A column, let's concatenate the next row, that value. So that should be equals to the lbl name dot caption, which is the username. For the B, it's the department, so that should be then next to that is the ID, and that is the txt ID, that value, and then task, that is a combo box, so cbo task, that value, and next is the start time. So we don't have a start time in our user form, and what we can do is to trigger our start time code after the user click the start button here. So here we can say start timer. We can call this start timer code from our module, and I'll do that. So if the user clicks start the timer, and wait, I'm thinking if I should start the timer already. or maybe not yet. So how can we populate that? Row E is the start time. Hmm. We can use now, but I want it to be the same value on the start time here, and we can only have value here if we call the start timer module. Okay, maybe instead of populating that in here, we can populate column E later in this module. Right, so let me go back here and remove that column E. And then every time we log an item as well here, it should also reflect on the uh, ID and task in here. So let's also do that. Let's create a new with. This time is for the tool worksheet or the prod tool worksheet. And then that is, I name it CAD equals to txt that value, and then the other one is the C task. It's equals to CBO task that value. And after that, we will call the start timer in our module. So when the start timer is called, we need to also populate this the start time value in here on the last row. So let's do that. Okay, here should place it here. So it will be log sh that range e, and I don't know the last row yet, so we'll just do that directly. Uh, no, let's create a variable for that. So last row is equals to tool sh that range. Oh no, not tool sh, should be log sh. This is a very useful code, so if you can memorize this, it would be better. Mhm. So here we can now say log sh that range e, and last row that value is equals to this value. So I will just copy that. All right. And what we want to happen is that if we call the start timer, this user form should vanish or should unload. So let's do that here as well. Let's say unload frm prod tool. All right. So now we can call this start in our cmd start. So just say call start. Okay. Now we can test, or maybe you can also add a message box here informing the user to please enter ID and select task. It's an exclamation and valid input. And maybe we can also create now a subroutine for launching the prod tool user form. Let's just say frm prod tool that show, and then let's assign that macro in here. Open prod tool. So now if I click this, it will launch our prod tool. It now reference our user details, and there's no current task yet because we haven't add yet anything. So now let's add an item. So this starts, let's check our prod log. All right, it works. So now let's add a new item, and now it also reference our data in our log or prod log worksheet. So let's add a new item. I'm just providing a random value in there. Now let's use a different task. Let's start. And if we check, okay, it's still working. However, we don't have a code yet that put an end time to our previous task. So let's work on that. All right. So we need to stop. Oh, we don't have a code yet for the stop. Oh, here's my VBA. Let's stop it first. So now we need to add a code that will end the previous log item. So I'll just add that in here. And then let's call this end previous log. And yeah, we don't need to call init sh again because it's being called on the user form initialize event. Let's start here by knowing what the last item or last row with item in our prod log worksheet. So let's use our public variable for that. Then we will update that item. So we need to declare two variable for the start time and end time so we can make a calculation. So should be of type date, and then we also need a variable for the time in minutes. Should be double so we can have a decimal point. So now we need to get the value of our start time. So our start time is equals to uh, log sh that range e, because this is our start time column, so we will be using the column e, and concatenate the last row variable, and then for our end time it should always be equals to now. So to get the time in minutes, we will be using the date diff function, and we want to get it first by seconds, and then the start time and the end time should be here. Oops, start time. Why I did not put the t in here? So start time and end time in here, and for us to get the minutes we will divide it by 60. So we need to divide that to 60, and we want to have only two decimal places, so we will be using the round function, and the number of decimal places only two. So after we get that, we can now put an end time and time in minutes in here. All right, so for the end time, let's end time is column F, so we'll use that and assign the value of end time variable. Oops. Oh, this should be the time in minutes. All right. So every time we start a new item, or every time we end an item, because in our user form we don't have an end button, so we want the end previous lag subroutine called every time we add a new item and then start the new item. I'm not sure if it's a bit confusing, but anyways, let me just show you how I will do this. So what I want to do is here on the CMD button, what I want to happen is by default, when the user first open this workbook, the value of this action field should be start. So after the user log his or her first item, the value will become running. So I will use that as reference to know if there's a need to end the previous item or not, because if it's start, then obviously there's no previous item to close because it's the first time that the user will use the tool. So let's do that in here. So in this button, I will say here after the validation that if tool sh that range c action that value is start, then just call start. Now if the value is running, it will go to the else statement where we will call our previous log and also call the start after that. All right, so I think we can test. Let me delete the value first in here, and let's also assign the stop time here. Stop timer. Oops. Assign macro stop timer, and let's clear this. Now let's log a new item. I'll just put random character in here. Start. Now we have one item. Let's try to end that and add a new item. So here, let's add some value. All right. So here we can see that we have now one end time to the previous item. It only took zero point 0.2 minutes. And let's add another one. Now we have three items with one still running. So next is we need to update this top code to also update the last item. So to do that, let me stop it first. Let's the stop timer is in our module. So let's modify that, and I will just create a new subroutine for stopping the last item. Okay, I need to stop this first, and I'll just call it end last item. And let's initialize the worksheet first and get the last row. So the last row is equals to log sh that range a and rows that count. And similar to what we did to stop the task or to put an end time previously. Well, I guess I can just copy that from the prod tool user form. Where is that? So here I will just copy this part, go back to module and paste that to my end last time subroutine. Alright, and this should be good. So if the user click the stop timer, we need to call this end last item. Alright, so now we can test it again. And another thing, when the user first uses the tool, this worksheet or this worksheet should be clear. So what I'm gonna do is select the worksheet from row 2 to the last cell. Then press Ctrl Shift arrow down in your keyboard. And then let's name this range clear logs. And then on the main form, after the user clicks start and before it unload, we will say log sh that range. What I name? What did I name? What name did I use for that range? Clear logs. Oops. Let's say clear logs dot clear. Okay, and we can also hide this setup. So let's add let's add some color first in here. Maybe we can set this to it's so black. Okay, I will not add color here, but you can hide this part of your tool as well as here. And then let's save it first. And I will run the code from the workbook open, but another thing I forgot. Sorry. So when the workbook is open, we need to also clear these values in here. So let me add the code for that. Uh, we need to call init sh first, and then with tool sh, need to say that range c action that value. So by default, it should be start. The c start time that value is equals to null, as well as the cid and the c task, as well as the user details, the c name and the c department. And then we'll call the main.show. So now we can hide this part of the tool so that we can only see this, and go back to my VBA editor, and I will run it from the workbook open. So it's like the same thing when you first open the Excel file. So run. Now it's asking for my username, let's say coding module. I hope that you subscribe and like the video. And for example, I'm on the IT segment. I will click start. So the user form vanished, but they should be clear. So we don't have any data now there. Add a new item, and now we can use development start. You can also see that in there. And if I click here, we have one item. Add I will add a new one. Select troubleshooting, and it's working. Let's add the last item. Maybe break. So we have now two items with an end time and last one with which is still running. So if I put stop, now it put an end time for that item. All right, so I think it also took some time to complete the tool, but I hope I was able to explain everything clear. And I hope using this sample application that we did could also help you to build your tools that can improve your productivity or help you with something you want to automate. Maybe some of the object we use here or functionalities we use here can help you on that. So if you like this video, please hit the like button. If you would like me to create a different application that you are thinking, maybe I can create that as a content. Just put that on the comment section of my video and I will try it. So that's all for this video. See you again on the next one. Bye bye.